Welcome to Breaking News to Trading Moves. Today we're looking at a major announcement that sits right at the intersection of energy policy, corporate deal-making, and artificial intelligence. Our goal is to really break down the moving parts of this story, to see which companies are set up to benefit and which ones might be facing a bit of a headwind.
So the core of it is this. The U.S. Department of Energy, the DOE, is lending $1 billion to Constellation Energy.
Okay.
And that money specifically to restart the 835-megawatt nuclear reactor at the old 3 Mile Island site in Pennsylvania. It's being rebranded now as the Clean Energy Center.
And the piece that makes this a real market story is the customer, right? This isn't just a government project.
Exactly. The whole thing is backed by a 20-year power deal with Microsoft.
20 years.
20 years. And all that electricity is going to power their AI data centers. They're hoping to get the reactor back online, I think, around 2027.
So for you, our listener, what this really signals is a pretty clear policy direction.
It is. Washington is now actively using federal loans to bring old nuclear plants back from the dead. And it's specifically to feed this massive new hunger for power from AI.
That's a great way to put it. Okay, so let's start with the clearest winners. I think we have to begin with the nuclear utilities themselves.
Yeah, you have to. And the most direct beneficiary here is, without a doubt, Constellation Energy. That's ticker CEG.
Right, they're the ones getting the actual check from the government.
They get the $1 billion loan.
Mm-hmm.
And you just can't overstate how critical that is. Restarting a reactor is incredibly expensive. You have regulatory hurdles. You have to overhaul major components. It's a huge upfront cost.
So the loan helps with the upfront part, but I'd argue it's that 20-year Microsoft deal that really makes this whole thing work financially.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
That contract gives CEG long-term, predictable cash flows. When you're trying to justify a massive investment like this, having a guaranteed buyer for 2 decades,
Especially a buyer like Microsoft.
especially an AA-rated customer like Microsoft, it just, it completely de-risks the entire thing. They know who's buying every megawatt.
Okay, so Constellation is the obvious number one. Does this news provide a lift for anyone else in that sector?
It does. It helps peers like Vistra, ticker VST.
How so?
Well, Vistra also has a large portfolio of nuclear plants. This deal sort of validates their whole strategy. It tells the market that, yes, federal money is really on the table to keep these plants running, or even, like we see here, bring them back online.
So it confirms the value of the assets they already own.
Exactly. It shows there's real support for this kind of power generation.
All right, that makes sense on the utility side. But this deal wouldn't happen without the customer. Let's pivot to them, our second group of winners. Big tech and the AI data center operators.
Right. And Microsoft, MSFT, they aren't just a customer here. They're really a key architect of the whole deal.
And what's their big advantage? I mean, they're locking themselves into a 20-year contract.
They are. But what they're getting is certainty. They are locking in a firm, carbon-free baseload power supply.
And baseload is key here. That's power that runs 24/7.
24/7, 365. AI doesn't sleep. You can't run these massive data centers on intermittent power. By doing this, Microsoft seriously reduces its exposure to, future spikes in electricity prices.
Right, because power is a huge operational cost for them.
It's a huge line item. Stabilizing that for 2 decades, that's a major financial win, but it's also strategic. The biggest bottleneck for AI growth right now isn't chips.
Yeah.
It's power.
They need to find the plugs.
They need to find the plugs, and this deal secured them a very, very big plug.
So do you see this as a kind of playbook that others can follow? Can Amazon, ticker AMZN, go out and do the same thing?
That's the big question. And I think the strategy is absolutely replicable. The 3 Mile Island site itself is unique, of course, but the playbook of using these long-term deals to secure clean, firm power. That's something Amazon and all the other hyperscalers have to be looking at very closely. They all face the exact same power problem.
Okay, let's broaden out again. We have the utility, we have the tech company. What about the nuclear industry's supply chain? That brings us to our third set of winners, nuclear tech and services.
Yeah, and here the narrative effect is really important. For decades, 3 Mile Island was the symbol of nuclear energy's problems.
Of course.
Now it's being brought back to life with government and big tech money to power AI. That strengthens this whole nuclear's backstory that's been building.
And that story translates into real work for suppliers, I assume.
It flows right down to them. You have companies like BWX Technologies, ticker BWXT. They build highly specialized nuclear components. A restart project like this means more engineering work, more manufacturing, more demand for what they do.
So that's the legacy players. What about the new companies, the ones working on, say, advanced or small modular
It
reactors?
helps them too. A developer like Oklo, that's ticker OKLO, they get a big boost from market sentiment.
How does that work?
Well, when investors see giants like Microsoft and Constellation putting billions into existing nuclear, they start looking for other ways to get exposure to the sector. They become much more willing to fund next-generation designs, seeing them as part of a growing and newly validated industry.
Okay, that covers the winners. Now let's flip the coin. Adding 835 megawatts of cheap, constant power into a regional grid has to squeeze somebody. Let's start with the fossil fuel merchant generators.
Right. This is where you look at companies like NRG Energy, ticker NRG, and also AES Corporation, ticker AES. The pressure on them comes down to a couple of key things.
Let's break those down. You mentioned it's a regional grid, PJM, right?
Correct. PJM is one of the biggest wholesale electricity markets in the U.S., and nuclear power has a very, very low marginal cost. It's expensive to build, but cheap to run.
So it will run all the time, no matter what the price of power is.
It will run all the time. And because it's so cheap to operate, it pushes other, more expensive power sources like natural gas plants out of the market, or at least lowers the price they can get.
And those merchant generators, they make their money when prices are high, when supply is tight.
Exactly. They rely on that scarcity. When you add a massive, constant source of cheap power like this, it eats away at those high-priced hours. And that directly chips away at their long-term profitability.
That's very clear. Okay, what about the next group? U.S. natural gas producers.
Yeah, companies like EQT Corporation, EQT, and Range Resources, RC. For them, the headwind is a bit more subtle.
Because the general thinking has been that rising electricity demand, especially from AI, would be great for natural gas.
And that's still true to an extent. But that thinking assumed that most of that new demand would be met by new gas-fired power plants.
Right.
This deal suggests that a growing slice of that AI demand might be met by clean, firm power, like nuclear. So if Microsoft and others go this route,
Then you don't need to build as many new gas plants as you thought.
precisely.
Yeah.
It just slightly weakens the long-term growth story for natural gas consumption in the power sector, just at the margins.
Okay, final category, under pressure. Utilities that are heavy on coal and don't really have any nuclear assets of their own.
Here you're looking at companies like American Electric Power, ticker AEP or PPL Corporation, ABEL. For them, it's really a story of being on the wrong side of where policy and capital are heading.
We see the DOE loan to Constellation. That's a pretty clear signal.
It's a very clear signal.
Yeah.
Federal money and corporate demand from customers like Microsoft are flowing towards low-carbon, firm power, primarily nuclear.
So if you're a utility with a big fleet of old coal plants and no nuclear, you're just not positioned to catch that wave.
That's the dynamic. You might have higher costs to transition your fleet, but you don't have access to these same streams of supported capital that your nuclear-focused peers do. Over time, that could cause your performance to lag. So the main takeaway for you is this. You have this combination of federal policy, massive corporate demand from AI, and these long-term contracts. And it's all coming together to really redraw the map in the power market, giving a clear advantage to companies with existing nuclear assets.
It's a fascinating alignment of forces. And here's a final thought to leave you with. How quickly will other tech giants try to copy this Microsoft model? And what does that mean for every other nuclear plant in the country that's currently scheduled to be shut down?
Please note that this analysis is not financial advice, nor is it a recommendation to buy or sell any security. This discussion is purely the opinion of the author of the material reviewed.
That's it for this analysis.